Let's get started. Thanks for coming over here, guys. We have a fantastic panel right here with a bunch of legends, really. I'm not sure what we're doing here, really. It's not like there's much going on in the space the last 2 days. There's not much to discuss, but we'll do our best to cover whatever's going on now. I don't think we need intros here, but let's do it anyway, just in case. So shall we start with you, Stani?
Sure. So I'm Stani Kulechov. I'm the founder and CEO of Aave. Aave is a team behind of the Aave protocol, effectively where you supply cryptographic assets into smart contracts and earn yield. And then you can use those assets as a collateral to borrow liquidity. And the Aave protocol is governed by the Aave DAO and is deployed in multiple networks, including Ethereum, Polygon, Avalanche, and Layer 2s, Arbitrum, and Optimism. And more recently, the Aave team, we've always been about building access. So whereas Aave protocol is access to finance, we've recently been building the Lens protocol, which is access to your social capital and ownership of your social media profile. Super excited to be here.
Hi, guys. My name is Julien Bouteloup. I'm the founder of Stake Capital Group. We've been investing in a space. We also have a quantitative hedge fund type of style, very important at the moment. But we also build projects. So I'm the founder of Rect News, the underlying investigative firm for everything that it exploits and whatever happens in a space. So I'm sure you guys are all expecting a new piece coming in a few hours about the recent things in the ecosystem. Also Blackpool. Blackpool is an asset manager for NFTs. We are the leader in the space. We manage, for example, biggest manager on Surveyor, Comet, other different verticals. And StakeDAO with the liquid lockers. We're an asset manager. We have about $300 million US, and we try to provide the best strategies for retail, going from spot to derivatives, options, futures, and all types of things like that.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Evgeny, founder and CEO of Wintermute. Wintermute is one of the largest, well, I guess it's the largest now crypto native market maker in the space. Basically, we're doing a bunch of market making activities across centralized, decentralized exchanges, OTC space, with a very big focus on DeFi across all kinds of chains. We're also a product company. We started incubating our own protocols this year, and well, actually yesterday we just launched our own DeFi aggregator called Bebop. So it would be really cool if you guys look at that, despite all the news.
Cool. Yeah, I'm Seraphim from Euler Finance. We're a lending protocol similar to Aave. We bring certain innovations to the space. But yeah, before we talk about what's going on at the moment, the topic is DeFi, past, present, in the future. And perhaps you guys could tell us, because you've been around for some time, how have things changed over the years into what's now, and what is the future of DeFi, just shortly. But perhaps we can start with you, Stani.
Yeah, I've joined the space in a moment where there really wasn't decentralized finance, so it was very early, and you saw different developers, teams creating experimentations, basically financial experimentations on top of the blockchain. So what's been interesting is that there's been an ecosystem that has evolved over the time, and most fascinating thing about it is that coming from the past, there's been kind of a compounding effect of the tech and capital efficiency and how these protocols are being built. Today, if you look into what decentralized finance really does, it's a very global liquidity market where everyone has access into it, and fair access. So in one way, for me, for the past couple of years, it's been more of something that went from a experimentation into building a protocol that currently secures billions of worth of value on various different networks has been definitely unexpected path. But at the same time, decentralized finance, what it as its core does, it really creates accessibility. So any person, any part of the world can actually access the same opportunity, the same yield, and have that transparency. It's basically what finance should be today. And I think looking at the events recently and over the past months, and not just related to, let's say, centralized finance, but if you look at how the traditional finance is being built, and the issues there too. So, there's shit that goes down in traditional finance with things like credit suits and the sort of problems. So decentralized finance effectively is a better technology and infrastructure, and on top of that, actually a public good, and creates an environment where we avoid these issues that we have in centralized finance. So I think all these events are just strengthening the position of DeFi and how valuable it is.
What about you?
Yeah, I got involved in a blockchain space back in days when Mt. Gox was driving 80% of the market of Bitcoin. So it's been a long time ago, and I experienced a few different collapse like Mt. Gox, so like centralized exchanges type of behaviors. For me, like because the market is becoming more and more mature, we have stronger and stronger actors that are entering the space with experience of traditional market and understanding of very complex or sophisticated products. And because we have built DeFi in such a way that everything is connected between each other, it's componized. If something happened in one place, for example, on the lending market protocol, and then a direct correlation between traditional finance in such a way that people can borrow liquidity in tradi, deposit in DeFi, leverage in DeFi, borrow capital on some very high speculative asset, and then go back in tradi. This is like fascinating, but at the same time very dangerous. And the reason why it's now possible and the order of magnitude of those moments in DeFi that we are having today, for example, like within the past 48 hours, we lost $200 billion US. It's huge wave with multiple different risks associated to those kind of behaviors, such as people getting liquidated, people losing a lot of money in the space. Well, this will increase over time. But yeah, if people experience this for the first time, it's a little bit, it must be very painful. But this will happen again and again. But what we're experiencing today, and this is the first time, Mt. Gox was 80% of all the supply of Bitcoin. I mean, it's not like liquid supply of Bitcoin. What today, FTX was one of the biggest exchanges in the world, and is at the same time in a big trouble. So everything can happen in DeFi, and this is what also makes the space very fascinating.
In 24 hours.
In 24 hours.
Yeah, I guess to me, it's mostly about the future of DeFi and basically what transpired over the last, I would say not just yesterday, but for the past 6 months or so, is basically all the failures that we've seen were driven by centralized institutions, where it was big lenders that were repackaging Terra yield, whether it was Three Arrows borrowing from multiple centralized lenders who were again repackaging this yield, and whether it was FTX that also probably did something very dodgy and very wrong on the Alameda side. And all those are centralized entities, and one unifying feature about them is they're intransparent. You have no idea what's going on. Like, if you look at Alameda, what was Alameda doing 2 days ago? The DeFi side of it was the only transparent side, and you could see them liquidating across the board. You could see them, selling Solana on Ethereum, for example. And that transparency part is, I think, what will make it winnable for DeFi to actually survive, not just survive, but to thrive in the long term. So this transparency is what separates it from, the current crisis, from 2008 crisis, from basically traditional finance system as we know it. And that makes me very bullish on it still.
Yeah, I suppose in times like these where confidence in crypto is decreasing a bit because of CeFi blowups, when you talk to people like your friends, family, regulators, you have to come up with a way to reason, why is DeFi better than this? Like, how do you typically do that? How do you reason that, DeFi is still fine, even if this CeFi, FTX stuff is blowing up?
Well, I think it's also what makes DeFi very powerful is that you can set rules that are based on smart contracts, which means that once you set those rules, it's very hard to change them. Like you need to overtake the network, or you might have a formal governance process where you have to have the community to come together to change all of the rules or some of them. And I think this is powerful because it reduces the need of trusting people in general. So you can set rules across globally, and you don't have to worry that whether you actually get your funds back. And I think the concrete example is today is that there are lots of people that are trying to withdraw funds from an exchange, and it's not available or happening for them at this point. And with decentralized finance, you can basically codify those rules. So for example, this is how an exchange should work on the blockchain. Or let's say this is how a lending protocol should work on the blockchain. And here are the specific rules, collateral requirements to ensure actually a marketplace where you have healthy economics there. Now, what's fascinating here is that when we go basically year after year and looking at these different DeFi communities, some of the interesting things there are is that these are public communities where people come together and decide upon different kinds of risk parameters. And that's very different what is happening, for example, in Wall Street, in traditional finance or centralized finance, what we saw, for example, with Celsius and BlockFi. And the reason, the reason when people come together across globally, decide on those risk parameters, and the information is available for them publicly, they can actually make better decisions. And when we look at the market fluctuations and these bigger lending protocols and DeFi protocols, what is happening here is that they are the ones that are holding up. And what that means is, first time ever, we actually have finance as a public infrastructure, as a public good, done in a way where they're resilient for various kind of attack vectors. Obviously, there's another challenge with decentralized finance when it comes to hacks, but hacks are everywhere. And at the same time, it's more about building resilient software. But as a software that actually works well, these DeFi protocols are actually very resilient. And I think that's where the value is. So you really don't need to trust people. And just going back 24 hours, a lot of public perception was that, let's say, FTX has, they have enough funds, and 12 or 24 hours later, they didn't. So, like, why do you need to trust anyone when you codify those rules and manage them together with a community? So that's what I was tweeting today, that I think the best even regulatory framework for crypto is DeFi, because you can remove all those risks. And global economy needs this. When you actually want to trade efficiently across the world with people you don't have business ongoing basis, that kind of a decentralized infrastructure works well.
Well, I'm a little bit less optimistic than Stani on the subject. If the question is how do you make confidence to retail, I mean, let's be honest, retail use, most of the people in the world, they don't really actually use DeFi. They use centralized exchanges because it's easier, because they don't need to understand the concept, the underlying technology. So trying to explain to retail that DeFi is the safe component compared to what happened in CeFi, it's complicated. It's like trying to explain a very difficult task with a lot of shit show in a space. So what people do, they go to Binance, they go to all these different centralized exchanges because it's easier. The UX is easier, the UI is easier. So us, what we do, we provide the very complex technology that cannot fail. So I agree with Stani, this is the most, it's an incredible piece of technology. But at the moment, this technology is used by the bad guys. Well, we should be able to provide a technology that is so simple to use for people that don't need to understand the underlying sophisticated piece of software, for people to be able to use this technology and serve a purpose. I mean, help themselves on a daily life. So it's complicated. I won't hide. It's really complex. Because when you say, okay, DeFi hasn't failed, it's like saying someone, they see like a project being hacked, and then they say, okay, Ethereum got hacked. Try to explain someone that the correlation between an Ethereum blockchain and a project running on a blockchain is completely different. It's like Mt. Gox got hacked, so Bitcoin got hacked, which is completely two different things. But it's really complex to explain.
Yeah, it's kind of, yeah, I'm in between, I guess. Like on one hand, yeah, it's just all the things that failed, they were ultimately running on trust. Like, yeah, you have to trust Alex Mashinsky, you have to trust SBF if you want to put money with them, right? You don't need to trust Stani to put money on Aave. That's great, but then again...
Even if I trust more Stani than SBF.
But then again, yeah, it's like you look at all the stories about, I don't know, Bored Ape holders doing unfortunate things with their NFTs. Yeah, it's a lot to build for us in the space to make it trust, like to make people trust the technology more. Yeah.
So we all talked about transparency basically being probably one of the biggest advantages of DeFi, just knowing exactly what's going to happen to your money rather than CeFi. It's kind of funny how CZ actually mentioned proof of reserves, because that sounds like a very DeFi concept to me. So it seems like CeFi, in order to be more legitimate, is going to try to be a bit more like DeFi, at least act like that. I'm wondering what you guys think about just CeFi versus DeFi. Is it going to be like a hybrid? Is it going to stay the way it is now, where it's completely siloed off, or we're going to see eventually everything merging into one? Like,
well, what's interesting with CeFi, you can do things that DeFi will never let you do. So that's the power of those guys. They are sitting and controlling some piece of like technology or connection with the tradi that all of them to borrow capital without actually, they will never be able to do so in DeFi, because the trust in DeFi is mathematics, is contracts. Well, here, CZ saying proof of treasury or something like that.
reserves, yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like telling, you have a black box spreadsheet and then explaining and telling someone, listen, trust me, the black box is audited, but without actually saying anything in the black box. So again, you have to rely on someone that tell you, yeah, sure, this is actually safe. I mean, I think it's all bullshit, but...
And it's not only like a CeFi problem, it's like problem in finance in general, because you can really adjust numbers depending on accounting standards. And I think what's interesting about, like, I think like CeFi and service providers will exist because there's a lot of ways you can actually provide value on top of DeFi. And I think just like some pieces, it's good to be as decentralized. And I think one of them is like trading, but nothing stops you actually providing additional value on top of the ecosystem. And I agree with Julien said that the ultimate issue here is that, you know, like you can be and try to be as good player as possible, you know, but at the end of the day, there's that big trust assumption. So if you have that black box, you know, you're still trusting that company. And, you know, clearly there are people in the space where, you know, they can't be trusted. So why would you trust the next owner or CEO of exchange? And I'm not saying that's the case, but I'm saying, like, because we have the tech available, why not make that as the back end of some of the transactions we're doing in the space?
Well, let's talk about the good things, actually, about some innovation that's happening in this space. I believe recently there was a transaction involving JP Morgan that also leveraged Polygon and Aave. Could you talk a bit about that? What was going on there?
Yeah, so basically, I mean, the Aave protocol, it's pretty much open source public infrastructure, so you can take that code and deploy in your own needs. You can use already a deployed protocol. What was interesting with the JPM's transaction is that they really wanted to explore the opportunity with decentralized finance, and they wanted to do it in a way which could fit their vision of how a financial institution in the future could actually access decentralized finance and trade on a infrastructure where they have this transparency, smart contract-based execution amongst peers globally, and create a market around that. So what JP Morgan actually did is that they fork one of the Aave Arc markets. An Aave Arc market is similar to the permissionless Aave market, with the exception that you have this whitelister condition. So whitelisters can be, for example, custodians. Fireblocks is one of them. There's another whitelister, Bank SIBA, Figma regulated bank from Switzerland, that is a new whitelister unrolling. And effectively, they can whitelist participants to the market. So you can create a private market to what already exists as a public permissionless market. Both are public, obviously, and you have all the transparency. But what JPM did is they used verifiable credentials to basically attach identity to the participants and then execute the trade by using Aave Arc by depositing tokenized cash deposits, Singaporean dollars, Japanese yen, into the market and do a live transaction amongst peers. Now, for DeFi degens like me, it sounds very simple transaction, but for a financial institution that is actually, going a few years back where the CEO effectively said that, I don't know, Bitcoin was it like rat poison or whatever?
Scams.
Yeah. So it's a big mind shift, so like the Wall Street is already thinking about that, DeFi and this infrastructure has potential. And I think navigating the way takes some time, but I think it was a big milestone forward for financial institutions. And I think it's hard to say like how the future for institutions work in decentralized finance, but as long as we see the infrastructure work well, we get more and more adoption because there's more comfort level to participate. The same way as some institutions already participating in the decentralized networks by, for example, holding cryptographic assets. Similarly, same idea and thesis could be applied to actually interacting with the layers on top, things that are built on top of Ethereum. And I think that will happen slowly.
Yeah, it's definitely a bright spot in innovation, I think. At least I thought that way. What about you guys? Where have you seen recently tangible innovation in the space in spite of all this shit that's going on around? What do you think, Julien? Or Evgeny? Go ahead.
Yeah, I think in general, I guess one thing I'm excited about, didn't necessarily happen, but I'm very curious how, basically for the next iteration of DYDX, how that will go, because they're planning to basically decentralize pretty much the whole stack this time. And
with
that,
Wintermute, yeah?
Sorry?
With Cosmos Wintermute, no?
Yeah, on Cosmos. And I think that would be a really interesting experiment to see, because we do need exchanges that can run in a fully decentralized way. That would be awesome to achieve.
How about you?
I mean, for me, like more sophisticated financial product, but not like, we believe in DeFi space that what we've built is kind of like new piece of financial products, but they are mostly just a replication of what we add in Tradi, and we now use them in decentralized finance. Well, I think like we have in the FX market $6 trillion US volume per day. In DeFi, I mean, for example, in Curve, we have something between 500 million up to 6 billion, depending on the market situation. It's really small compared to the world of finance. So it's a drop in the entire ocean. So when we bring those assets, real estate, swaps, bonds, all type of different assets like this, and then let the retail with like good education and content, so it's not unsafe or dangerous, then we'll be able to build new type of financial product that we never seen before. And for now, it didn't happen yet. For now, we have completely disrupted the infrastructure level, like blockchain, decentralization, zero knowledge proof, all those different work in the space of the blockchain industry. But the product built on top hasn't been really different from the traditional finance. That's what I'm looking into.
Yeah, I think another bright spot for me actually, is basically decentralized uncollateralized lending. Because if you look at uncollateralized lending,
Well, in CeFi they do it very well.
Yeah, CeFi did it super well, as we all know. But if you look at protocols like Maple, TrueFi, Clearpool, like one big distinction, and we're basically coming back to this transparency thing. Like you can exactly see how much Alameda, Wintermute, Fork1, Ember borrowing from each of those protocols. You can see it in real time. You see how we repay. You can see our repayment history, and you can see basically our liabilities live. And you cannot see it on decentralized lenders.
So maybe if I can add, there are two different things that I'm looking into. Like there's a project called Back Finance, for example. They do like tokenized ETF to a SPV type of thing. So it's a mix between legal framework and DeFi, fascinating. And also but this is a little bit dangerous at the moment, but fully algorithmic stablecoin. So what Aave, Curve, and Angle and other products are working on. So being able to build a stable coin that is not necessarily attached to fiat or in a real world asset. So you have something at the end of the day that is purely based on mathematics and cannot be manipulated outside from the CeFi guys or from some pseudo influencers in a DeFi space. And this is very, very fascinating. Like adding all these type of futures, options, trying to maintain the peg, or using the virtual price of Curve at the auto market maker level, or like what Go is doing on the Aave side. Those type of things will completely change. Because the reason why we have DeFi today, people tend to forget, is because of MakerDAO with the DAI at the beginning when they launched. Now Maker is a little bit less there because of, I think, DAO style. But yeah, we have a trend, and the new one that is opening to us, this kind of new access to stablecoin, fully algorithmic stablecoin, and then new type of products like ETF, swap, bonds, will make like a huge, strong basis and pillars for the next phase of DeFi to conquer CeFi, and not let CeFi guys enter the space to farm us, because at the moment we feel like we are farming and dumping assets. No, CeFi guys are farming us. At the end of the day, it's like the guy looking at the earth. Oh, they've always been CeFi. Yes, we are the DeFi guys looking around. Yeah.
Or they farmed.
Yeah, they farmed. We almost like on the floor, like, and now we have to tell some guys how beautiful and nice and good they are for us to not be completely crashed.
And I think the point here is that also that the people who are like working and building DeFi are the true believers. So like we believe what we're doing.
Long-term builders.
Long-term builders. And that's why I think like the stablecoin examples are fascinating, because definitely before stablecoins, it was very hard to create anything financial. And I think stablecoins aren't really even, we're very early, because we still use infrastructure for the internet money, something that could be replaced easily with stablecoins, especially with layer 2s. I came a couple of months ago from Argentina, from Buenos Aires, and the inflation is almost skyrocketing to 100%, meaning that you have less purchasing power 1 year after of your earnings. And I think like there's sort of places you can do a lot of impact. And with the undercollateralized loans, I also think that the way we structure currently, like a lot of these loans are going to like funds and folks that are trading in crypto. No offense, Evgeny, but so what's interesting here is that taking this concept, but
the fight is starting. I like it.
Yeah.
Taking this concept of like undercollateralized lending and bringing it where it can empower quite a lot. Because what's interesting about undercollateralized loans is that, especially like the liquidity in DeFi at the moment is relatively cheap. So you could take that liquidity out of decentralized finance with different kinds of credit systems and pull it back to the economy. And you'll see this happen, that interest rates are going to just go higher and higher. And that's where like we start to think and shift our minds towards like, okay, how we can actually take this stablecoin liquidity or fund opportunities in real life as well, outside of our like a crypto space. And I think that's where a lot of empowerment will happen.
In terms of innovation that has not happened yet, what do you think needs to happen for us to get to that future DeFi situation? What is lacking that should be happening soon?
Oh, one key is censorship resistant. Being able to build something that cannot be turned off in multiple different ways. For example, you can have a blockchain that's fully running. At the moment, we don't have fully decentralized blockchain. We're aiming for fully decentralized blockchain, but AWS, like all these cloud and all these different things, it's complicated. Yes, you can run a dApp node at home, very expensive, and you shouldn't, I think, because you will lose money, or you need like a setup that's so huge, it doesn't make sense. So we need fully decentralized network. It will come with the technology that evolve in IoT devices, or being able to run a node from the smartphone. Even if your phone goes down for 8 hours, 10 hours, you don't get slashed, all these different things. And then the second one is the, what's the first one? Censorship resistant, and the other one was, I said something. I've completely forgotten.
You only said that, I think, right?
Yeah.
But that's good.
Oh, no, yeah, that was the point about the, even if you build a fully decentralized blockchain, then you have to be careful about the products that are using the fully decentralized blockchain. And because blockchain can be fully decentralized and censorship resistant, if, for example, you have a Tornado Cash product that is completely running, safe, of course, offering a service that might put people in risk or whatever, but what happens is like if you have a horse Trojan horse, it's like, for example, USDC. Anyone that interact with Tornado Cash, even if Tornado Cash is still running, now they have their funds stopped from their wallet. So it depends on what we want to build as a future for our society. Do we want to have a system where everyone can interact with each other in a fully decentralized way and completely private? Or do we still want to have people, because of the fact they're saying, oh, to maintain people from bad activities, we still need to know who's doing what? This is really dangerous. At the moment, we're aiming for fully decentralized products, but we're still using very centralized activities that can impact the use of those different products that we're using.
What about you, Evgeny?
Yeah, I think it's. Yeah, I guess I'm a lot lost in thought, like kind of like processing all this.
It's the light.
It's
very
a light.
strong.
And the comfy chairs.
It's like we all
Yeah,
like
a child here.
Totals.
But anyway, yeah, the new year is upon us, really, 2023. Do you have any predictions, something you're excited about next year? What do you think?
There's so much still going to happen probably this year. It's 2 months of 2022. So I think once we get past of this next couple of months, I will do some predictions.
Well, I say it's fascinating, and at the same time, it's also like quite stressing because for like us, we also have like quite huge companies, and we have people working in those different products and companies. So we have, at the end of the day, people they have to eat and pay the rent, you know. So, but I think like doesn't kill us make us no pain no gain, and what doesn't kill us make us stronger. And what's happening, I think, is better to happen now than later when we're actually bigger, because everything that we can take from now will be used as a lesson for future. And it's clear that when we had Terra, Luna, Dokun, and all different things, we said, okay, this is the biggest thing that happened in DeFi. Guess what? Not even a month later, boom, even bigger by order of magnitude. And this within 24 hours. So anything can happen, and the reason why anything can happen is because we haven't built the technology strong enough for those things not to happen. So it's not because people are using us, or we don't let people use our software. They should be able to use it. Anyone, because it's permissionless. But at the end, the technology should be so strong that those type of behaviors, they cannot actually destroy us. If they destroy us, it means that we were not good enough. So we should always ask questions, retrospectively ask questions to ourselves. Are we building the correct piece of software that will change the world of tomorrow? And this is very important. Otherwise, this technology will not be able to use. And you cannot go to a government or nation state and say, okay, you need to use blockchain, you need to use stablecoin, you need to use all those type of things. They will look at past history, and they will probably look into wrecked news, and then go through those type of past and say, oh shit, this is not possible. We prefer staying in like isolated, hidden world.
No, yeah, I think I'm very much aligned here. It's sort of like cleansing fire, what happened over the last 6 months, and it just like cleaned away so many things that I think a lot of people collectively kind of started compromising on, Like all those discussions that SBF had super recently about, well,
With Eric, yeah?
yeah, which kind of drew the battle lines for a lot of people. But yeah, we started discussing, can we actually compromise on controlling front ends? Can we compromise on this? Can we compromise on how DeFi can be accessed? And now I think we're back to square one, and I think it's good. And I think it's good that I think next year, like coming year, is just going to be year of building. It's going to be like 2019 or something. So it's going to be pretty tough, but I'm quite pumped about it, to be honest. I'm like, super excited that we are back to the roots. Yeah.
Yeah. What I usually say, like, whatever happens, if DeFi collapse, if blockchain, like, is not something that will drive society of tomorrow, this space, I think, has been the biggest school in the world, educational-wise, like in terms of concept, financial concept, like learning about lending market, borrowing, like being able to leverage, to hedge options, futures in a financial concepts, but also outside, non-fungible asset, like all those type of products. This is not something you learn at school, or you need to have like access to one of the biggest schools in the world. You need to we're born in a very specific location. So this space was, I'm not sure what's the intention of Satoshi Nakamoto. People, they're like, oh yeah, creating a token, but actually this is the biggest school that we have never had before, and this is fascinating. So whatever happened, I think we can all be proud of ourselves in a way of the access to knowledge that this space was able to provide to people. Zero knowledge proof, mathematical-wise, economic, microeconomy, and also the fact that we need to be aware, and always, whatever happens, that you always have 4D chess. And we're seeing this at the moment, like CZ buying FTX or whatever, and saying, tell me on earth why you will tell the world that you are planning to dump multi-billion US dollars assets publicly without actually selling it. Because this is your bag. You don't tell someone, I'm about to sell, please, be careful. No, because you either have something, like you have your plan. You do like, you take position in the market, or you want the thing to go very, very bad, so then you can do acquisitions. So whatever you read on Twitter, there's always a message between the lines. And I think the community is starting to understand, but they still use centralized exchange, so I don't understand.
Also, something we need to stop doing is like worshipping like basically leaders in the space, because the whole idea about decentralization and communities that you can like bring tribes together and communities together, and this is like happening like ongoing basis. And some of these people that are like actually kind of like done, they even come back.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Keep coming back on podcasts.
Most of them all staying in Dubai, but yeah.
Yes, we've got 1 minute. Quick advice specifically for builders in the bear market. What should they be doing?
Bear market? Well,
yeah, builders specifically.
Builders, and also people that maybe got affected by the market, find a position in a nice environment, nice company, focus on building and shipping. Because if you look at the history of blockchain, all the people that were or enter blockchain for long-term purposes, like build, they're all here and like quite success for them. So it's a matter of being here for the long term, medium or long term, not the short term. Because if you take this space as a short-term plan, it's like going into the casino. Yes, of course, you will always find people going out of the casino and then super happy. But the reason is it's actually why they build a house, the casino. They make sure some people leave the house, well, like multi-millionaire, whatever. But this is very unlikely that you will get into those people. This is like getting a ticket, you know. So I think the priority is like focus on building, try to find a product that helps society, and then just, we have a long path. If we'll still survive this phase, we'll still be here in 10 years. So.
I mean, there is no other space that is as exciting, fun, in all different ways.
And pain.
And pain, but intellectually stimulating, learning, like, there is no such other space, yeah.
Yeah, I would just say to focus what is important to you, and for some it's building, for some it's like solving a problem. It's like markets are going up and down. It's not only crypto. There's things happening in the bigger economies at the moment with stocks, and interest rates are going up. So, and I think it's it's going to be hard times, and I just think focusing what is important to you. For some it's health, for some it's basically DeFi. But yeah, I would say like it's a good time to have less noise and build things.
Cool. Thank you very much. This was a great panel. So.